Welcome to your post-daily news update. I'm John Pollock alongside Wai Ting here on Monday, February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Including you, Wai. Yeah.
Thank you so much, John. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well.
Wai, why don't you give us an update? Where are you right now?
Well, I am in my basement, currently going through some home renovation. So a bunch of people are doing some demos right now, right next to where I usually record. So it's a bit noisy up there. It might even travel a bit more here too. So it seems to be it's going to be a several weeks long process. So who knows where I'll be? I might be, podcasting from the road, from I don't know, just a snowbank somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, your presence is all we require, Wai. So that is great. Just giving everyone an update here, as you are from the set of Home Alone 2, is what it seems like.
Is that what it looks like right now?
The abandoned home.
Right.
Like those times you're lost in New York, and thankfully your mega rich family just has a beautiful Manhattan multi-floor apartment that can just be your playground for a night of criminal activity.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't have any unwanted visitors.
Well, we're going to get into to everything here, but just an update for this week. Of course, we are live each day in this very same time slot with the post-daily news updates, and I want to make mention that this Thursday, I'm going to be doing a panel show with Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics, as well as David Bixenspan from Between the Sheets, and we are going to be discussing WWE's relationship in Saudi Arabia, of course, with their return coming up this Saturday, and sort of discussing a lot of different aspects of this story and the deal that now is 4 years since they announced a 10-year agreement with the General Sports Authority in Saudi Arabia. So I'm looking forward to chatting with both of those individuals. That will be happening on Thursday, the same day that Wai will be back with the wellness policy. So a very big day coming up this week on Thursday. And then we'll have coverage of Elimination Chamber on Saturday. Saturday evening, we will be going live. So a couple hours after the pay-per-view ends, which is scheduled for a noon Eastern start time.
Yeah, really busy day or really busy week. I'm sure it'll be a really busy day that day as well. So never a shortage of things to talk about here.
Yes. And last thing you can still get your questions in, because we will be dropping the Ask Away mailbag show on Tuesday night for postwrestlingcafe.com members. And you can go post your questions in the thread at forum.postwrestling.com. Get your questions in, and then that show will be popping up on your feed on Tuesday night. Let's get into some of the items coming out of the weekend. Of course, Sunday was the Super Bowl, and there was quite a lot of integration, not just from WWE, but of other wrestling or former wrestling personalities involved here. But I guess the most notable thing, at least from a WWE perspective, was the fact that they had two spots that aired during the Super Bowl promoting WrestleMania with a third.
Yeah, we've seen WWE do Super Bowl ads before. I would say this one felt pretty generic, and I guess continues their form of marketing where really it's not so much about the stars, but about the brand of WrestleMania itself, because they probably don't exactly know what's supposed to be headlining at this point just yet. So I don't think it was very good of an ad, certainly not one that you would remember in the sea of incredible Super Bowl ads that are out there. What of course is definitely a bit more interesting is that one of the words that they chose was dynamite.
Dynamite, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's just for people to read into so much, but yeah, that was one of the words that made it there. Look at that. Do you think just this was very much just like a generic? It's pointing you towards WrestleMania. It's like, this is our event. It is beyond any matches. Do you think it would, we do know it's going to be Reigns and Lesnar. We do know it's going to be Ronda and Charlotte Flair. Do you think they could have been maybe a little more specific, or again, this to me was more so designed for people to jump on and get Peacock. This was on, like, the host broadcast for Super Bowl was NBC. So obviously there's that in there. They plugged WrestleMania for Peacock, Raw on the USA Network, and Friday nights did not get any mention in this particular ad, as it was not going to. They're not going to be promoting Fox here. But getting back to my original question, do you think that they could have maybe just pushed your two big matches featuring Lesnar and Ronda Rousey, which we assume to be the two main events?
I think some sort of personality, driven piece involving your biggest stars in a Ronda Rousey or a Brock Lesnar or even a Roman Reigns for that matter, I think would have been maybe a bit more memorable. When we're talking about Super Bowl ads, it's usually very star-studded, celebrity, like just full on, right? And there wasn't exactly a whole lot about this ad that got you talking. It was like, oh yeah, WrestleMania, remember that thing? I guess it's on Peacock this year. Okay, do you have any interest? I don't know. What's going to be on it? Who knows? So it's just a bunch of like pretty pictures, and again, I think it just goes towards like how little they probably know. I mean, up until the point that these ads were finalized. If it is Charlotte versus, in storyline on TV, that is finalized right now, yes, but Roman and Brock is not. So, and who knows, like, what plans might change up until the point.
Yeah, I guess there is that. Anyway, it was just a way to really promote WrestleMania in whatever sense that they thought. Maybe what they could have done was have at WWE headquarters have someone thrown off of the headquarters. Remember from...
Listen, yeah, that's the ad that I think we all remember. That was a great ad. The first time the WWE did a Super Bowl commercial, it was...
and last, again, wasn't it? I think it was the one and only time that they did one. Maybe that tells you something.
They're very expensive.
Not cheap. Also, I thought this was actually very smart on their part that they were able to have a replica championship on the ready, so that when Leonard Floyd has this championship and he's right behind Roger Goodell as he is presenting the Vince Lombardi trophy right after the game, that was a very smart move by WWE to have this title ready and get at least your logo on in the background here.
They seem to do that for every single sports event, right?
They issue them, but I can't remember something like this where they had it ready for like the immediate post game. But I could be wrong as well. So.
Yeah. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't, especially if they had somebody attending the event, right? Like, getting that there, change the nameplate to whichever team wins and get that logo out there. And, this is another kind of reminder about exactly why they've chosen this belt design that they have and why we're not going to go back to the Winged Eagle or any sort of like more classic looking championship belt anytime soon. This is as blatant of, hey, let's get our logo up there with the celebrity as much as we can. And it's worked out for them so far, it seems.
Yeah, it's just amazing because like, could you imagine another brand, another company trying to use a WWE performer on their television? WWE would never allow something like this on their own broadcast. You know what I mean? Have Brock Lesnar out there with like his favorite car company that he's just casually mentioning.
It's Vince McMahon. It's totally different, But this is a trophy, I suppose, not so much an ad. I guess that's how they.
Oh, this is very much an ad, Wade. This was absolutely an ad for WWE.
But if you're the NFL, you don't give a shit. Like it's just a WWE. So what?
Dwayne Johnson was featured introducing both teams at the beginning. You saw Dave Bautista in a Super Bowl commercial. Nikki Bella was on the pregame coverage for her America's Got Talent Extreme series as well.
Or is that Brie?
I thought it was Nikki.
Okay, Brie's on the show, isn't he?
Brie is on a different show.
Yes,
they're both involved in different things. So anyway, like a fair, decent amount of pro wrestling or pro wrestling adjacent characters featured on the broadcast. But the question that everyone has was: did Wai Ting watch the halftime show, and was it the best halftime show of all time? Wai?
John, I have my G Unit tank top already on order.
I'm sure those things are just flying today.
It was a halftime show, I think, specifically designed for people, similarly aged to you and I. And I thought it absolutely hit. It was it was a lot of fun seeing Dre with Snoop, with Mary J. Blige and 50 Cent, and like,
Upside down 50 Cent.
upside down, just like in the video. Like, it was cool. It was a really great nostalgic, type of show. And I mean, greatest of all time, I don't know. I don't watch the halftime show every year. I saw a lot of people, bring up Prince being the best one. But it's one where I wonder, like, hey, like, are we still in the target demo? Like, are we going to 2000s era as like nostalgia acts right now versus, let's say The Weeknd or something like?
No, this was the halftime show that officially proclaimed that in the straight line of young and old, we're old.
Yeah,
that's what this halftime show was.
But it seemed to be very well received, at least in terms of entertainment. I mean, I enjoyed this far more than The Weeknd last year.
I thought this was awesome. It was the only 15 minutes I watched of the broadcast on Sunday. I had no interest in the game, but I was glued for this halftime show, and I had a lot of fun watching it. So that's my litmus test of if it was good or not. Coming out of the weekend, actually, let's stay on WrestleMania because we did mention it is Valentine's Day, and they are doing a special promotion a Valentine's Day sale. Bring your Valentine to WrestleMania. 2 tickets for the price of 1 using the discount code WMLOVE. Good until the sale ends on a Tuesday night at 10. So funny enough, but the fact that they are doing this 2-for-1 sale, I think that does tell you. It's not to say that WrestleMania tickets have sales have been. They're at about, I think WrestleTix has them in the neighborhood of like 50,000 out each for both nights. But that's far from filling the stadium on either night, which I cannot expect that this is going to be a show that sells out. It's more so getting enough bodies in there to fill it. It's still going to look nice with, probably by that point over 60,000. But nonetheless, they are doing these 2-for-1 sales, and maybe the idea that one would be an automatic sellout and people would just come to the second night, it hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I guess not. No. I mean, it's like exactly you said, we've seen them do these for any sort of double headers, like AEW does them, and maybe tells you that, hey, like perhaps the demand for night 2 or maybe one of the other nights is not as strong as the other. It seems to be pretty common practice, and I guess I feel bad for anybody who did purchase a ticket beforehand, who might have wanted to get both, or somebody who bought tickets to both. Are they eligible? Can they get a refund and then buy this instead?
No, that is not how these work. It's I have like several like newspaper subscriptions, and like some of them, like the end of the year comes and you get these crazy offers, like $5 for the whole year. I was like, dude, I'm paying more than that a month. It's like I feel as a consumer that I'm being penalized for being I bought into your product, and I feel like I'm getting penalized for it.
I know. Well, what can you do? Anybody who runs a business like this, one of the challenges is to acquire new audiences, and to do that, you have to give promotions. So, maybe for the people who bought tickets twice already, try your luck with StubHub, I suppose, or just whatever, just like enjoy it. And do we know if this is eligible for all tickets, like, or in all sections, or is it a particular area that they might be doing this for?
I would imagine it's in the available sections. I'm certain that it's a good question here. Just looking at it here, I would imagine they're like the floors are probably like, your prime seats are going to be gone at this point. I don't think you're getting, $1,000 seat and then the other one for free. But anyway, that's something to look deeper into. The last thing on WrestleMania, do you expect like past years where we're going to go, I think last year, like they did announce what would be on night 1 or night 2, but it was very late that you knew that. Do you see them making more of an effort to differentiate night 1 and 2 so that I know that I'm getting Reigns and Lesnar, I want to go on the right night and know several weeks in advance when the key matches are going to be on what night?
I do think so. Last time, how much did they announce right before the events? Did we get full cards before the event, or at least what was going to be on each one?
I feel we knew in advance, like at least the week of. I feel they had made it clear what was on each night. The first year, the first year they did the 2-night thing, it was no fans. But nonetheless, it was like that was pretty much right up until I think the weekend. Like you didn't know what was going to be on which night.
Yeah, I mean, I think as an act of service, I think you should. It's one thing not to announce when the match will take place, or at least like what position on the show the match will take place. But I mean, if you're asking people to make a time commitment and schedule their week to watch one particular match, I think as an act of service, I think Peacock would probably appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it just gives you a better direction to both sell tickets and people to figure out, what is going to be their priority of matches to see. Coming out of Saturday, at UFC 271, Israel Adesanya retained the UFC Middleweight Championship. We have a whole review of the card up on the site with myself and Phil Chertok doing a review. But after, there was the post-fight press conference with Dana White, and Joe Rogan was not on the broadcast. On Friday, it was announced that he would be off and Michael Bisping would be taking his position due to a scheduling conflict. And the scheduling conflict came in direct as a result of all of this controversy around Joe Rogan. And then during the main event, John Anik notes that Joe Rogan just texted me and he thinks that Israel Adesanya might have an injured right hand. So this was very perplexing to many, given that the public story had been a scheduling conflict. And then afterwards, Dana White was not going to play any of this game. He was like, the scheduling conflict story was bullshit. He could have done the show. Joe Rogan elected to not do the show. Obviously, UFC had no problem with it. It was not. Dana did not get into any specifics about Disney or ESPN weighing in on Rogan's involvement, but the way Dana White presented it was a Joe Rogan call. And there were many chants for Rogan from the crowd at the Toyota Center in Houston. So that was an element to this show that kind of hung over it.
It's really fascinating. And I mean, you can always count on, I suppose, Dana to, give you some sort of interesting quote for the journalist to run with after the fact. And usually I think we see promoters try to downplay controversy. I mean, I guess that's never been Dana White's MO, because he's like basically calling out, hey, there's something more up here, we should take a look at it. This is not exactly as things are presented. So I mean, from the way he made it sounded like it was a Rogan call rather than a UFC call. So I mean, knowing how I think transparent Rogan's audience demands that he be on his shows, I imagine he will address this,
I would think it comes up at some point from Joe Rogan. I mean, the initial report on Friday had stated he'll be back March 5th, which is the UFC 272 card. But yeah, nonetheless, it was very surprising that John Anik would make that, drop his name. I mean, to me, that was...
I mean, just because he was watching the fights doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't have a scheduling conflict. Could be that he had an interview in the morning, or something he had to do that afternoon. I mean, we're just speculating, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dana White, you can certainly always take his comments with a grain of salt, but I don't think anyone bought this scheduling conflict when he had been scheduled to be doing the show up until Friday late afternoon. So, and I guess the focus will be if he's back in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm sure that will kind of also play into how much this story sort of dies down over the next few weeks, or if it kind of keeps up this level of attention.
Well, the thing is like I think you kind of got your answer about that, from this broadcast. It feels like the UFC audience don't mind, his presence, and in fact, they want him to be there at least.
And the top fighter on the show was very public in his defense of Joe Rogan in Israel Adesanya at the press conference on Thursday. So right. I do not think this is a case of, the idea of a backlash from this UFC audience that, for the most part, not going to paintbrush everybody, that probably has a very pro-Rogan view in all of this. If I'm Joe Rogan, though, I could certainly see that my involvement in this show was going to overshadow a lot of things on this show, and maybe does not want that attention that would have been taken away from some of the fights. Like, Joe Rogan's on that broadcast. He is the story coming out of the event, no matter what happens.
Yeah, and he, even when he wasn't, he was still the story.
Yeah, he still managed to take up a lot of attention in the post-fight news cycle. Samoa Joe joins the Briscoe brothers and Bryan Danielson as part of the inaugural Ring of Honor Hall of Fame class. Again, another no-brainer when it comes to this first class for the, at least when you're listing off in-ring talent for Ring of Honor, the longest title reign, probably the most well-remembered title reign in ROH history, that lasted almost 2 years, from March of 2003 till the end of December 2004, when he lost it to Austin Aries. Had the famous matches with Punk, with Kenta Kobashi, the Aries title switch. I mean, you can go on and on and on, but this was one that I think, like Danielson, like Briscoe's, would be right off the top of your list when it comes to in-ring contributors to the Ring of Honor legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no surprise that I think he would be chosen for an honor like this, no pun intended. And maybe, partially good luck that he's not a part of any major company right now, which would allow him to potentially do more with the company if they wanted him to. I think for me, maybe the only surprise is the fact that he's going in this first class when you already have, arguably, if you want to call it, a headliner of the class in Bryan Danielson going in. I was curious to know if they would be sort of like spacing out, their top names, much like the way the WWE does for their Hall of Fame. And clearly not. Bryan and Punk. Oh, sorry, Bryan and Joe going in the same week or same class, and it makes you wonder if a Punk could be named the week after. But yeah, so they're doing the episode this week.
They'll do the Joe episode this weekend, and then they have another inductee for next week, and the Hall of Fame episode will air the weekend of March the 5th. So that's when we'll see whatever this 60-minute show is and what it's comprised of. Like, I would think at the bare minimum, you're going to get videos sent in from all the inductees and mixing it in with probably footage and different things like that. Probably more like a documentary style episode like they recently aired with the Women of Honor documentary. Maybe that kind of an episode. But I think it should be at least a curiosity view for people that want to check out what they have in store for the Hall of Fame episode itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder, hey, what are the names that are available to them the year after? I'm curious to see the presentation and how big of a deal they actually make it.
This is going to be the most long-term booking Ring of Honor is going to be doing. It's Hall of Fame classes, potentially.
Is there a part of you that is surprised they're not waiting till closer to the return date to actually do something like this and maybe having some sort of interaction, like live presentation, for their Super Card of Honor?
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could announce it. Again, it all comes down to the schedules of those involved. That to have some kind of in-ring ceremony at Super Card of Honor, that would be a really cool deal. And if you could, all of them contractually could do this now. I think Danielson getting the okay to go do a non-wrestling appearance for Ring of Honor. Joe is free to do so. The Briscoes are obviously free to do so. And whatever other inductees, I would imagine it would be the same. To just do an appearance at Super Card of Honor, I think that's an interesting hook for the Super Card of Honor show. That you air this Hall of Fame episode March the 5th, and then what do those ensuing weeks of television where it's all taped stuff anyway? You're going back to the archives. What do you fill those weeks in to build up your Super Card of Honor show? Again, it's a great idea. It's only if the logistics work out and people are available to appear. We have AEW's announcement of their return to Long Island, New York on May the 11th. So this will be just a few weeks before the Double or Nothing show. Of course, they made their debut at the UBS Arena last December and drew 9,300 paid. It was a very strong debut for them in that arena on Long Island. And the return will see the start of both the men's and women's tournaments as part of the Owen Hart Tournament. Of course, the finals will take place at Double or Nothing over Memorial Day weekend. And yeah, Long Island, I mean, this is a perfect example of you present someone as a big deal in their hometown that these many months out, that this show is going to be unique because of MJF's involvement and the value of kind of making someone strong in their hometown, that it becomes a draw for the next time you go back there.
Completely. Yeah, the Owen Hart Tournament beginning the week of, or at least a few days removed from the man's birthday. That to me is the most interesting one. We still really don't have too many details about the type of tournament that it's set to be. But
Well, I can't imagine it just sounds to me, Wade, like it's going to be single elimination. If you're starting at May 11th and the finals are going to be like, what's the weekend of Memorial Day weekend? I think it's like the May 28th. So it's like you only have a few weeks to do this tournament, and and you're doing a men's and women's one together. So, yeah, depending on how many people are in it, that could be a lot of matches to have to get through in a very short window.
and look at the poster, Hook right there in the sea with Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Sting. Hook and Jade Cargill. Like, I mean, as far as sort of their rising stars go, I mean, it tells you a whole lot about where they see him, because it does feel like he's a legitimate draw.
Yeah, and you could be looking at a scenario this many months out that MJF going for the title at Double or Nothing could be a potential story that you're building at that point, and him being in Long Island, that could be that should be like a big night built around MJF wherever his character is several months from now. But anyway, that is their return to Long Island. And we also have news coming out of the weekend. Defy held their 5th anniversary show on Saturday night in Seattle, Washington, and it featured a match between Christopher Daniels defeating 16-year-old Nick Wayne, who was able to compete on this card. There was no issues with any commissions, so he got to wrestle. And then, after losing the match, Darby Allin appeared as a surprise and presented Nick Wayne with an AEW contract, which Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer site noted after the fact that it sounds like it's an agreement that comes with the stipulation of him finishing high school, and this being kind of like a deal you saw Bellator use with Aaron Pico, that they signed him at a very young age to develop, and then in time he would become like a main roster fighter. And that seems to be at least the philosophical thinking of this type of a contract with Nick Wayne, and signing him now before he breaks out further and maybe he goes elsewhere.
Kind of like the AEW's version of the Next in Line deal, except
yes, we can now start the debate between Gable Steveson and Nick Wayne and see where each are in 5 years from now.
Instead of tapping into college athletes with no prior wrestling experience, they're going directly to the source of indie wrestling promotions and grabbing people like a Nick Wayne. I mean, you look at the similar sort of I think taste in young prospects that we've seen. And apologies for the noises. Can you hear all that?
Yeah, it's you're about to have your halftime show, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Like you see what they've done with somebody like a Jungle Boy, who I think had a similar level of buzz prior to his offering of an AEW full-time contract, and look at how that man has blossomed. Nick Wayne at his age, from what little I've seen of him as part of these GCW shows, has already made a huge statement, and I like the idea. I like the fact that he's encouraged to finish his schooling first before and not having to worry about trying to fish for a full-time job afterwards. I mean, it looks like he's already got one lined up.
And can still work independence. Like, that's what he should be doing. He should be going in, and he's working like a lot of quality guys. I mean, to go out there and do a match with Christopher Daniels, that's invaluable experience for a 16-year-old. So it's, he, over the last couple of months, I mean, he has really broken out and gained a lot of attention. I think the Joey Janela match was kind of that breakthrough moment where a lot of people outside of the Washington area maybe are first putting their eyes onto Nick Wayne and seeing the potential here. And I think it's a great move by AEW, and really shows kind of their focus on future talents and offering him a deal now before it's not to say that maybe WWE would even be interested, but not taking that chance of him signing elsewhere.
Well, part of me is even curious that AEW is thinking this far ahead about its future. We see them making moves and grabbing up all the WWE free agents that exist out there, while at the same time, it's obvious that they're still paying very much attention to the sort of underground scene of who's going to be the next Darby Allin or the next Jungle Boy or the next MJF in a few years' time.
Yeah. It's like they have their next several decades planned out between Nick Wayne and Brody Lee Jr.
That's it.
That is exceptional long-term planning on their behalf. New Japan, they're going to be holding their 2 shows in Sapporo this weekend. Night 1 has Hiroshi Tanahashi and Sonata for the United States Championship, and then Night 2, Okada and Naito for the IWGP title. But the second show on Sunday will also see Toru Yano and Minoru Suzuki, and the votes are in, and we are getting a dog cage match where there are no disqualifications, and the loser is the one that is placed into a dog cage, and the door is locked. Must be locked.
Forget Okada Naito, okay? Like, we've seen that before. We bring out the headlines for a dog cage match between Toru Yano and Minoru Suzuki. I mean, it's kind of silly, but at the same time, it is one of the few fresh things that I can at least say that, you know, New Japan in Japan proper is presenting at the moment. So fresh ideas, even if it's something as silly as like this dog cage match, I think are positives. If there's somebody who I can maybe rely on to make a dog cage match feel serious, maybe it's Minoru Suzuki. So I'm somewhat curious to see how this goes.
Yeah, and the second show is actually in a pretty good time slot. It's technically like late Saturday night. It's midnight Eastern our time. So if you're on the West Coast, that's a 9 p.m. start. The WWE show will be over by like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern time, I should say. But anyway, that's coming up with New Japan this weekend. And the final note is Raw tonight in Indianapolis, Indiana. They have announced that Brock Lesnar will be on the show. Lita is set to appear. We will get the RK Broga party. And Damian Priest defends the United States title against AJ Styles.
Is it Damian or is it Priest?
Ooh, they have not stated which identity Damian Priest will be bringing to Indianapolis, Indiana. Could we get a mid-match switch? I guess that is the burning question for tonight's episode of Raw. Are we going to get Brock or Lesnar?
What's the difference?
The man bun and smiling versus crew cut and angry. We could get Lee or Ta. Yeah, this joke is of course. But that is Raw on Sci-Fi tonight. Week 2 on Sci-Fi.
It is the go-home show before Saudi Arabia and the last, I guess, new broadcast on the main roster, like the last live show before Elimination Chamber. So, I mean, everything seems to be set at this point. We'll see if they can elevate any hype levels heading into this one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and of course, SmackDown is taped. That's airing this Friday. So for those that were on the SmackDown crew that aren't booked for Saudi Arabia, they've got a nice 2-week break.
Good for them. Yeah.
So always nice to have a bit of a vacation. Mm-hmm. But we never take a vacation from your super chats. So if you have your questions ready, we can go through a couple super chats before we call it a day.
Yeah, we got a few of them today, and I want to thank everybody for joining us again every weekday, 1 o'clock. Whether or not my house is being demolished at the moment, we will be here 1 o'clock Eastern time at youtube.com/postwrestling or Twitter or Facebook, wherever you choose to check us out. And thank you to so many regulars who have chosen to join us, including Brandon from New Jersey, who sent a $5 super chat asking, anyone stock up on their G-Unit tank tops? DJ Jopo, get inspired for another run at Glory? Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of doing the show upside down. Actually, we should have just changed the camera angle for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon.
I will say when I heard the moment of like feeling your age was the second in the club started, and that's when I realized
that song is 20 years old. And
I cannot listen to a song and not immediately think, when did this song come out? It's just my automatic go-to is the release, and especially I can remember so vividly hearing these songs for the first time. It's that was 19 years ago. Mm-hmm. Nick Wayne wasn't even alive.
Shut up. Okay, just enough of this. Robert Pearson, Mr. Pearson himself, sends a $10 super chat asking, considering the success/visibility of the halftime show, should Mania put on a halftime show aimed at a younger demo?
I think in a way they have done this many times with the musical act, whether it's Kid Rock or P. Diddy that one year at MetLife Stadium. They've always had the musical edition. I just don't think it really brings the attention that people assume it does. It's and it's honestly from a live perspective, being there in enough of these stadiums during them, it's definitely treated more like an intermission. And I don't know. like it would, I think, take first of all, to get the kind of attention you want, it would blow their budget through the roof to be able to do something even in the stratosphere of what a Super Bowl halftime show costs, that I just don't think the return would be there, and that it necessarily would have the kind of success that the Super Bowl halftime aims to do.
It's also behind a paywall, and I'm not so sure that, the same sort of appeal is there for something that people have to pay to get access to versus something that, you could flip a channel to and just strictly watch. Let's say if you were John or I, who just wanted to see the halftime show and didn't really want to actually see the wrestling itself, right? Or the actual athletic competition itself. So I'm not so sure. And we also know that wrestling audiences, I think, are very different, I would say, from maybe your Super Bowl audience, where I think a Super Bowl crowd, you have as many people watching for the commercials, watching for the halftime show, or just strictly watching because their friends want to throw a party and it's their one time of the year, or they want to watch, football. With wrestling, I would say the audience is probably a lot more dedicated, and many people are there to watch the wrestling. And so if you have any sort of like musical act or non-wrestling act, I do think there needs to be the acts that tend to have a bit more association with wrestling, whether it be like Limp Bizkit playing, The Undertaker out for his entrance song, or just anything that I think is a bit more closely tied to the wrestling itself tends to work a bit better. We go up next to Keyshawn Emirali, who sends a $5 super chat, who says, "Can you explain how Francis Ngannou is a free agent later after this year? I thought the champ clause locks him in. Isn't that how they stopped GSP and De La Hoya?"
So this has been something that has changed with certain contracts, where there is now built into, like, Ngannou's deal has built into it a sunset clause, where, for those that are not familiar with the Champions Clause, traditionally as it has worked is that if Wei is our post-wrestling champion and just keeps defending and defending it, it doesn't matter if we have him locked into a 5-fight deal. If that 5th fight you are champion and defend your title, well, your deal just rolls over and encompasses X amount more fights. So it's not going to be a case where you just fight out your contract and suddenly our champion is able to leave and go somewhere else as our champion. Now, Ngannou's deal now has a built-in clause where it would roll over for a certain amount of time, but by the end of this year, and it's been debated, is it going to be this year or when the actual fight, the first fight of this most recent deal took place. So it's within a window, whatever, whether it's the end of this year or several weeks later. There's a drop dead date where, regardless of whether he is champion or not, he is free to go after that date. So if UFC cannot work out a deal with him, like, he still owes the UFC, I believe it's one more fight on this contract, but if he's not healthy, like, they can't force him to fight, and you have this date where once they hit that date, he's free to go, even if he is your UFC heavyweight champion. It's been contracts that have been structured very much towards the promotion, that they are never going to allow their champions to go. But in the wake of the antitrust suit, like, you have seen small changes that are working their way into UFC contracts. And John Nash is a reporter at Bloody Elbow that has recently wrote a very extensive article going over some of these contracts, the newer ones with UFC fighters, and what is built into them, and a few more points in favor of the fighter versus being so one-sided to the promoter. And that would be one, having a sunset clause on a deal where, like, a George St. Pierre, like, he retired back in 2019 and he could not take this fight against Oscar De La Hoya in a different sport. Like, that's how restrictive the contract was for him, and it still has a bit of time left on it.
Thank you very much, Keyshawn, for that. We go up next to Jake from the Windy City, who sends a $5 super chat, and he says, "Good Monday, fellas. When do you see FTR versus the Briscoes going down? Are they probably saving it for Supercard of Honor?"
If it's happening in a Ring of Honor ring, that's probably your only option, would be Supercard of Honor. So I would say if it doesn't happen there, like, the only other option would be AEW. But that was not an angle shot on AEW television, and it's not been mentioned on AEW television. So it would kind of be out of left field to do that match in AEW unless they shoot a new angle where the Briscoes show up.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, at this point, I mean, we've not even heard mention of the Briscoes on AEW television, so it seems like, this is one of FTR's outside ventures that they're able to do, and I think it's a very worthy if you want to even consider it a headliner for Super Card of Honor, if that is the match.
It'd be a big match for that show, certainly.
Finally, we got a John Cino, who sends a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, John, who says, any interest in the Bel Air reboot / dramatization? He says it's pretty good. Have you heard about this, John, or have you even seen it?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it yet, no.
It's the reboot of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, but like it done seriously.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to watch it, just for the concept itself, for the idea, We've seen, I think, we've seen plenty of reboots. We've seen plenty of updated modern takes on like existing concepts, but I don't know if I've ever seen one where they took a comedy and turned the concept into a serious drama. So
see, I want the opposite. I want like a real serious drama turned into a comedy.
Yeah, has that not been done? Trying to think, like a comedic version of something that was serious. I mean, Batman, if you want to consider it that, like the Adam West certainly feel, but maybe that was more the opposite. Maybe it started off more as a comedy and then got.
What's going to be the episode where Will gets shot and Carlton buys the gun and they turn that into like slapstick comedy?
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I'm certainly curious about it, and I want to know if they like even
what's this on?
The opening.
Is this HBO Max?
I believe it's Hulu.
Okay.
Or Peacock, actually. I believe
it's Peacock.
It's Peacock, right?
Because HBO Max had the reunion special year or two ago, I think.
Yes, that is right. Yeah. During the pandemic.
I really liked that reunion special. I thought it was awesome.
It was great. Yeah. So we'll let you know, dude. Cino,
I'm not going to get to this anytime soon, so I'm not going to say I will have any updated thoughts in a few weeks.
Okay. What about the? How many commercials did you actually watch during the Super Bowl, John? Did
0.
you see any?
I saw none. Yeah.
So I'm guessing you haven't had a chance to watch the Doctor Strange trailer?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay. Well,
was it good?
It was fucking great. It was awesome. And there's a lot to talk about. I mean, a lot of surprises in the weeks to come. So I can't really wait for MCU later to come back so I can.
Were there spoilers in it?
I mean, if you want to consider them spoilers, but nothing in a trailer is really a spoiler, right? So, anyway, whatever. I'll save the conversation. If you want to talk about it, join the Discord.
I don't.
postwrestling.com/Discord for all the discussion if you guys want.
All right, we're back tonight, 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time for Rewind a Raw. We will be live for our double Ice Cap and Espresso members at postwrestlingcafe.com, and then back here Tuesday live at 1 Eastern, and that does it for your Post Daily News Update.